Hello and welcome to Die Rollin. I'm the ever excitable Adam, and behind me are a wall of games, and looking up here it looks like they could fall down on me at any point. I'm really worried that Feudum looks like it's going to just plummet. So yeah, if I do die during this video, just tell my children I love them. So today I'm not going to be playing anything. I am going to be talking at you for however long this video takes. So I've been playing some solo games. I've played Jagged and I played Resident Evil. Now I say solo games, these are games that you can play with more than one person, but because of COVID and lockdown, I found that actually I should be spending a bit more time playing these games solo, so I actually have a chance to play board games. So yeah, I picked up Jagged, I played it, it was great fun, and Resident Evil also. I'd had it for a while, I'd never even touched a thing, and I thought, do you know what, let's get this out. So, I'm going to compare these two board games, which are based on video game franchises. So let's talk about the video game aspect of this first. So, Jagged Alliance. I don't really know much about the video game before I came to this board game. I always remember it was a game I'd heard of, but never played. They did bring out a Jagged Alliance game on the Xbox, was called Jagged Alliance Rage or something like that. And I played a little bit of it and it was okay, but it wasn't really gripping. I didn't come back to it. Whereas there's quite a few people who've played the original Jagged Alliance and Jagged Alliance 2, maybe on the PC, I want to say, or the Amiga 500 even. So it's a while ago now. But yeah, there's a lot of love for this game out there. And it was a strategic, fun game where you had a bunch of mercenaries who would die and they would stay dead. The thing that's closest to this for me would probably be XCOM, the UFO Enemy Unknown series that I used to play as a kid. And you could create your own guys, your own soldiers and things, and name them whatever you wanted, and then they'd die. And you'd feel sad about it for all of 5 minutes until you got another person out. But yeah, Jagged Alliance was one of these games where it was like a strategic game, and you're going around trying to liberate these various different places from evil dictators. So I didn't really know much about the franchise, so unfortunately I can't really come into this little kind of comparison going, oh well, it's very similar to the video game because of this and this, but I apologise for that because I've just not had the time to play it in my life. I'm busy playing other things. Whereas the other game we've got here is Resident Evil 2, the board game. Now, I'm not quite sure why they didn't start with Resident Evil 1, the board game. Maybe they have and I'm just not aware of it. But yeah, Resident Evil 2, the board game, is based on Resident Evil 2, which is a game I played to death. It was a game that came to me when I was a younger person. And I loved zombies, I loved horror, and it was one of the only games out there kind of really ticking the boxes back then for those kind of things. So it's got a special place in my heart, the video game franchise, that is. So coming into this review, I will be able to tell you how closely I feel it actually relates to the video game, which unfortunately, like I say, I can't do for Jagged Alliance. So let's start off with Jagged Alliance, because I have to say, I had seen this and I'd approached the publishers for a review copy, and thankfully they said, you know, Adam, we like the cut of your jib, we're going to send you one. So they sent me the review copy of the game, and I have it right here. So here's the game itself. It comes in a really big box, as you can see, and yeah, like from the artwork on the front, it looks pretty mean. You've got like somebody's kind of eye in there. There's flames. The back of the box, also pretty cool. And yeah, it's just something that really struck me as I had never played the game, the video game, but just looking at the back of this and just seeing some photos and reading a bit about it, it just sounded like it would be a really cool strategic game to play. So, components. The components in Jagged Alliance are exceptional. I'm really happy with what they've done with it. You've got a bunch of cards in there which are really nice kind of quality. They've got everything you need to know is on the cards as well. They also have some nice artwork in there which is lifted from the games themselves. and some nice iconography on there, so it's fairly easy to understand what's going where. Saying that, I made a ton of mistakes playing this game, and if you have a look at over any of my solo videos, you'll see that the comment section is just rife with people correcting me where I've gone wrong, which I am very grateful for, guys. Which brings me to the rulebook. So I'm kind of including this in the components because it is part of the components that will make this up. And I'll probably get back to the rules later, but the rulebook itself is really nicely illustrated. It's got a lot of pages in there, and it's also, yeah, it does teach you how to play the game with the scenarios they give you for this. You got like 4 scenarios, which kind of gradually bring you into the game. However, I missed quite a few key things from those scenarios, and I don't know whether that was just because I was just rushing to play it or just taking my interpretation of it. But yeah, I felt the rulebook in itself and the scenario book that come with it are very well laid out. They look good, and they do give you a lot of information, but I don't think it's especially the best rulebook I've read. But that's not saying much, because a lot of the rule books for the games behind me can be quite long and quite complicated, and sometimes English isn't also their first language. So some of the games that I will be playing, the rule books, yeah, they won't make much sense, which obviously will lead to mistakes being made. Let's talk about miniatures. You get not a ton of miniatures in the game, but you get a fair decent amount. The miniatures themselves are really nice. I've yet to paint them, but I will probably be going back to do a Jagged Alliance Underground solo playthrough, which is like an alien kind of add-on that you can have for the game. So I'll probably be doing that, and maybe for that I'll actually paint these miniatures up and we can have a look to see what they look like when they're painted. But the miniatures as they come, they're really nice, good detail on them, and you've got some nice kind of plastic clips to put on the base so you can tell who's who. The actual boards for the characters that come with this are nice, sturdy, thick cardboard, and all the components really in it are really high quality, really nice. When I was punching out things from the punch board, there's always a risk that you're going to get stuff that's ripped in some way, but none of the tokens ripped, everything came through, and it's all really sturdy. I imagine I could play this game again and again, and I wouldn't have any issues with kind of like, you know, things being worn down. What else there? The dice. So you get a bunch of dice with this. The dice, all engraved, custom dice, really nice little effects from that. And yeah, the dice are quite easy to understand as well once you know how to play the game. Anything else in there? I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. You obviously get some cubes and stuff like that to move things around, which, yeah, they're fine. They're cubes. So components, I would rate this game really high. The price point that you're going into this game, the kind of quality components you get for it really do match up. So so that's a really, really good kind of positive there. Next, let's talk about gameplay. So, Jagged Alliance, you play over a series of I think 10 campaign missions you have to do. And you get a nice little map in there which shows you where in the in Uruko you're going to be, and you know that gives you a good idea. And you also get to choose at a point. You get to choose which missions to approach first, which can affect the game, going forward. The gameplay itself, you are kind of moving action cubes around. You're moving your mercenaries around. There's a lot of strategy in this game. There's a lot of randomness as well with what kind of troops you're going to be getting out, and depending on what weapons you've equipped and how you approach your missions can vastly change how the missions turn out. I, for one, haven't really played any game that has used an action mechanic like this. The closest thing I've got is Vindication, where you kind of move stuff from your kind of potential to your influence to your conviction or whatever they're called, and then you can do stuff depending on where you've got your action cubes on the board. And Jagged Alliance, you basically got a bunch of action cubes which are kind of in the middle for action, and then you spend them and they go into like your fatigue, so you get tired as you do these actions, and then every round you get a certain amount of fatigue back. But if you don't have when you get hit by enemies, it takes action cubes from the kind of the action space and takes it to the wounded side, and those wounded ones cubes are lost to you until you heal yourself. Now, if you don't have anything in your action cubes kind of free area, if it's all in, it's all kind of been spent, or it's all in wounds, and you've got to take more damage, then you're out. So you've really got to be kind of weighing up pros and cons of, do I just spend an extra turn to go in there and, spend some extra cubes to go in there and definitely take these guys out, or should I hold back? And a lot of the times I made like massive key errors with my decision making, because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna move the guy here, I can kill these two guys, great. And then I'd realize, oh wait, the enemy activates now and I have no defense. And it did become it didn't end well for some of my mercenaries. You've got a bunch of variety in this game. There are 13 mercenaries overall that you can play with. Each have their own special abilities and each play vastly differently. So that's also really good with regards to the gameplay itself. You get a lot of replayability on this. It comes with 3 dictators, but the scenario book itself, all the kind of story in there is relating to only one of the dictators, which is a bit of a shame, because you would have hoped that it'd be a bit more open, or maybe if you had your second dictator, there was another scenario book you could go through. But yeah, all the scenarios, all the dictators do is just add a different kind of gameplay mechanic. Speaking of gameplay mechanics, you've also got the lieutenants who come into it, and lieutenants are a real pain in your backside, because these guys change how the levels are played. Some of them increase the threat that comes out every turn, which, if the threat goes too high, bad things are going to happen. You get worse events coming out as well. And the enemies themselves, there's about a handful of enemy types in this, but they all have like a basic and an advanced side, and then an elite version of both of those. So yeah, they are pretty cool, because they're very different, and how you approach them is very different as well. The campaign itself, like I say, it's structured in a way that you can approach these missions after you've got your helicopter after mission 4. You can pretty much go to, choose which route you want to go down. And not everything's open from the offset, but as you do missions, you unlock things. And I found when I was playing it, I got to a point where actually I'd done quite a few of these missions. I succeeded, and then I was fine. I was suddenly on the last level. I didn't realize I had done so much, which is a bit disappointing, because I kind of got to a point where I was like, right, I feel like I'm getting the hang of this game. I feel like my guys can take on more tougher enemies. And then the game ended, and I was like, oh, speaking of that, one disappointment for this is the last level you have to come across. So the last level you have is just basically you have to kill the dictator who's in a tank. Now, I previously killed a tank. It took me some very lucky dice rolls to do this, but it wasn't especially... I don't know, I'd kind of liberated all these different areas, and I expected more from the final boss, because what happens, the final boss, once you kill the final boss, it immediately ends. There's no, you have to, finish off the level or anything. As soon as you kill that enemy, that boss is game over. So it was a bit anticlimactical, the ending, which is fine, because... in one way, I was quite relieved that I managed to finish that campaign. I was like, great, I've done all this stuff. I finished this. It was great fun. But it did leave me wanting a little bit more. You can, however, pick up some... you can download scenarios online, and if you can track down the Underground expansion, they do have some additional kind of gameplay elements and things you can do. It took me a bit of time to find an Underground expansion, because I don't think it's even in print anymore. But yeah, if you can get a hold of it, that does add a little bit extra to the game. And if you stay tuned to our channel, we might be doing that as well. Anything else that I could say about this game? Well, I would highly recommend this game as well, I'd say. Jagged Alliance, for me, as a solo play, was great fun. Even now, I think back to it and think, oh man, I really miss playing that. It was great. It's one of those, just one more try kind of games. You fail at a mission, you think, I could have done this differently. And the fact that you've got 13 mercenaries, and that's it. That's basically your lives. As soon as those 13 mercenaries are gone, that's game over. So that's pretty cool. So Jagged Alliance... highly recommend this. You should definitely, if you get a chance to play this game, you should definitely give it a go. If what I've said to you has kind of intrigued you about this, you should definitely check these guys out. Their links will be in the description below for this video. But yeah, for me, this is like an instant buy. And the next game these guys do, I will be really interested in having a look at it, because if it's anything near as good as the quality of Jagged Alliance, then I'm on board day one. Which brings me to Resident Evil 2 now. So we're going to move over to Resident Evil 2. I couldn't really cover with the Jagged Alliance stuff how close it sticks to the video game, which I'm sorry I can't do that. So that is a bit of a shame. But let's go through Resident Evil 2. So here we are. Here's the box of Resident Evil 2. I can hear everything moving around inside. There's the back of the box there. It's not the biggest box there, but hey, it's a box. It contains everything. So, Resident Evil the Second. Let's talk about components. So, this is my first sticking point in Resident Evil 2. The tiles that come in this game are pretty bad. They're very dark when it comes to the artwork. And, you know, I get that Resident Evil 2 itself is set in a kind of abandoned police station for some of it. And, you know, it is quite dark because you've got zombies and stuff coming around. But yeah, it's the actual artwork on the game tiles are too dark. The material they printed on as well is very shiny as well. So if you have overhead lights, you just kind of lose the atmosphere there. And if you watch some of my videos for Resident Evil 2, you'll see that actually some of the stuff was kind of lost because of overhead lighting, let's say. Also the cards, the dials, the tokens, it's all quite disappointing if I'm honest. It's not the best kind of quality, and when you're paying X amount of cash for a licensed game, I don't know what you should expect. Licensed games tend to have a bit of a bad kind of stigma attached to them, I guess. It's the same way like if you're going to go watch a film in the cinema and it's based... Cinemas, remember those? And it's based on a game that you really loved, chances are it's not really going to tick your box because it's not, you know, what you fell in love with there. And I think in some ways, some board games that are based on film licenses or computer game licenses can also suffer that. Oh, it's a bit of a quick cash-in. Zero Horizon Dawn, for instance, which coincidentally is made by the same people who did Resident Evil 2. That was a game that looked great when you sat down and play it. I mean, the components were really nice as well in that one, to be fair. But when you sat down to play it, it was really disappointing, just lacking variety, lacking a game, if I'm honest. So component-wise, Resident Evil 2 really just doesn't do it for me. The cardboard's just cheap, it feels. And when you're setting the levels up, you have a little wall. There's some certain areas that say, oh, there's a wall here. And rather than giving you like an actual kind of like a token that represents the wall, you've got a very thin strip of black card that looks like it's just left over, which represents the walls themselves. If I hadn't like looked properly at the game, I might have even just chucked them away thinking, what are these for? I did say in my videos that there was actually not enough terrain tiles to populate the last levels. I was incorrect because you can flip over the stair tiles and then you have like a black scenery kind of tile. But once again, I didn't see anywhere in the rulebook that actually explained that, which, you know, was a shame. The rulebook itself, it's quite flimsy. There's not much to it, really. It's nice because, like Jagged Alliance, it introduces you to the game and some of the concepts by starting you off with like a tutorial mission. And the rulebook itself is quite short, but it does give you some information. I did find I had to ask less questions with Resident Evil 2 than I did with Jagged Alliance. But overall, yeah, it was a fairly competent kind of rulebook there. What else to say? So we'll go into minis now. The minis in this are great. I was a massive fan of these minis, and when I got them out of the box, they didn't look especially nice, but actually after I painted them, wow, there was so many details on these miniatures. They really popped from the table, and I was even able to paint a little miniature Will from Die Rollin, which that for me was a dream come true. Shooting Will as a zombie is just something I've always wanted to do, I guess. But yeah, the miniatures themselves, really lovely kind of, molds on them, really good sculpts. So yeah, they look great. The dice themselves, Custom dice, the same as Jagged Alliance. And yeah, they're perfectly fine. What else did we have? I think that's around it, really. I did like you have these little character boards for there, which you could move your health up and down on them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the components for this game. Gameplay-wise, this is something I thought they really did capture the essence of the game. Because in Resident Evil, if you go around and you shoot every zombie, you're not going to get very far, because it's a survival game in the sense that you only have a limited amount of ammo in the entire game, unless you obviously use cheats. And you're just a regular person. You're not supposed to be some kind of superhero. You're just supposed to be a regular person who can, take a certain amount of damage. So you do have to really think about your moves before you take them in this game. You're also against the clock. There's a time down mechanic where once you run out of your deck of cards, that's it, game over. So you've really got to weigh up the pros and cons of doing missions as efficiently as possible, which means not shooting every zombie you come across. There is a lot of luck in this game with the dice rolls. Whereas Jagged Alliance, I felt there was a lot of strategic positioning, which would assist you with these dice rolls. So for instance, if you moved yourself into a building, you would have a better chance of defending. And if you moved yourself into different terrains, different things will happen. So that was quite good in Jagged Alliance, that you have those options. Resident Evil, there's not really anything to mitigate the luck element to this. You're just hoping that you roll well. If you don't, you're going to die. And there's nothing really to kind of mitigate that. It's very much luck based. But hey, you kind of want a bit of luck in one of these games, because if it's really easy to kill all the zombies and run past stuff without any kind of risk, it wouldn't be tense. And this game is tense. It really does get that whole kind of tension of feeling like, oh, we've got to get out of here before the clock kind of ticks down. And when you're making a horror board game, the hardest thing, I think, is to actually put horror in the game. You can set up a game and you have like horrific creatures in it, like Lobotomy that's behind me somewhere. This one here, really good game. You've got some horror enemies in it, but it doesn't scare you. You're not afraid to play the game, and I think that's one thing that I've not played a board game that is a horror survival game where I've actually felt scared playing it. I think that's a really hard thing to do. If you have played a game which you're scared to play, apart from Monopoly or Fallout, then please let me know below, because I'd love to play it. But I've never found a game that's been able to actually get that kind of tense, scary feeling that you get playing a video game when you're home alone, the lights are off, and you're 16, for instance. So a long time ago for me. But yeah, they do kind of get some of the tension with that, what they call the tension deck, and it running out. So that's quite cool. I think they really did well with doing that. What else to say? Variety in this game. You've got the same scenarios every time. The the tension deck will be slightly different depending on what you do. There's going to be a different order to the cards you get, the items you pick up. There's also 4 characters in this game, so you can swap and change who you want to play with, which have different abilities. But overall, there's not really much to come back to once you've completed this. Granted, I would say that out of all my games, I rarely go back to them once I've completed a campaign. Especially if it's a legacy game, I never go back to those. I finished it, it's one and done, that's great. But yeah, I don't think Resident Evil 2 is not really a game that I would be coming back to unless I was playing it with somebody else. I wouldn't solo this again unless I had some extra bits to do. Obviously, I do have the some of the expansions for this game, which I will probably cover on the channel at some point. It's like the B-Files and the Survivor Horror expansion, we give you some more character options. But yeah, there's not really much to bring you back to Resident Evil 2. Once you've done it, you've done it. Now, one of my main bugbears with this game is the fact that it's a campaign and it's supposed to kind of reflect the computer game, but the plot just isn't there. The computer game has a story. You have, now and again it'll stop to have a cinematic and you understand what's going on, where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. But the kind of story in this game feels like it's more of an afterthought. If you've never played a Resident Evil computer game, and if you've never played Resident Evil 2, you won't really understand who these people are or what they're doing. There's no real introduction to it. So, for instance, it says, at one point you have to head back to Marvin, but it doesn't really let you know who Marvin is. And, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel like they've skimped on the story. Just a little bit of extra time would have meant they could have had a really interesting story which really immersed you. And immersion is a thing that you really crave for in these kind of thematic board games, which are, representing those video games you played as a child or those films you watched and really enjoyed. So with Resident Evil, I felt the immersion wasn't there because the plot wasn't there. There was no real story. I want to care about the characters. I want to, be surprised, have moments where I'm shocked. But yeah, you didn't really get that with that, which is a shame because the video game that it's representing is a lot more story focused than it is just things happening. So with that, is there anything else I need to say about either of these games? Well, I did recommend Jagged Alliance. Would I recommend Resident Evil 2? So if you are a fan of the computer game, yeah, if you like Resident Evil 2, the computer game, I'd say definitely give this a go. Should you buy it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is something you should definitely go out and pick up. If you saw it secondhand and you're a fan, yeah, pick it up. If you saw this full price, maybe watch some videos, make your own decision about that. I don't think I could, full-heartedly recommend this to anybody, just because it's good. I enjoyed playing it, but it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't the best game I've played, and I don't think there's much more I can really say about it. So out of the two games, out of Resident Evil 2, and of course, Jagged Alliance, it's probably clear from my tones in this which one I enjoyed more and which one I'd be happier to play again. That is Jagged Alliance. So yeah, it's very interesting when you're trying to play a game based on something else, and now and again they manage to pull things off. The Godfather, the board game, for instance, great game. I really enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of the Godfather movies. Well, the first two anyway. And yeah, I really felt like, yeah, they've done this well. I'm just trying to think of some other ones which I played, which they did really well. But Jagged Alliance, like I said, I've never played the original game or anything like that, but it was a delight. Resident Evil 2, it was fun. Did I enjoy playing it? Yeah. Will I play again? Meh. Jagged Alliance, did I enjoy playing it? Really did. Would I play again? Yes. And out of the two, I think you get your money's worth with Jagged Alliance, because playing that alone with playing with multiple people would be, a totally different experience. Resident Evil 2, playing it with multiple people, I honestly don't know how you could play this with more than two people, because, yeah, there doesn't seem to be enough room or enough time to do the things you need to do. But yeah. Out of the two, I would say if you were going to buy one of these games, Jagged Alliance is a game you should own. It is great fun. Is it an entry-level game? No. But definitely give this a whirl if you are interested in strategic tabletop board games. And in this strange world at the moment, it's very hard to sit down with other people to play board games. So if you want a really good solo experience, Jagged Alliance is a really good solo experience. Resident Evil 2, if you see the second hand, pick it up. If you don't see a second hand and you really like Resident Evil 2, the video game, yeah, pick it up. If you've never played Resident Evil 2 and you want to play this, I would say, do you know what? Just go on YouTube, find the cinematics for all of Resident Evil 2, watch them all, and then play this, and you'll know what's going on. But yeah, this is a play it, the other game is a buy it. And that's about all I've got to say about these games. This is the kind of thing where I'd come away from here and I'll think about some extra bits and be like, oh, but this and that, and how about this? So I might add some extra comments in the description below. If you saw my solo videos and you agree with my opinion, or if you haven't seen them and you don't agree with my opinion, or any combination of those things I've just said, then please leave a comment below and I'll get back to you on my thoughts on what you said. I've been your host, the ever excitable Adam, and Please, if you enjoyed this video, let us know. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Until next time, guys, stay safe and keep rolling.